Hello and welcome. Our top story is from South Africa, a country which is certainly not in Donald Trump's good books. But in this new year, Pretoria might be trying to change that. How? By backing the US Afrikaner Refugee program. The program has been mired in controversy since Trump rolled it out last year. At the centre of it are Afrikaners. Donald Trump has falsely claimed that Afrikaners are victims of genocide within South Africa. Trump says there's a white genocide, which is why he wants to bring them to the US as refugees. Ramaphosa's government has strongly denied these allegations. Until now, South Africa has been totally against Trump's Afrikaner program. Pretoria called it deeply flawed, even comparing it to apartheid. But now, South Africa seems to be softening its stance. According to media reports, US and South African officials met in December. There, the two sides agreed that South Africa would not interfere in the Afrikaner Refugee program. Now, that's a big shift. How has South Africa justified it? Well, according to media reports, Pretoria said that though it did not agree with the unsubstantiated white genocide claims, South Africans have the right to move to whichever country they want to, and the government won't interfere. This reported agreement comes just weeks after South African officials raided a US refugee centre in Johannesburg. 7 Kenyans were arrested and deported. Pretoria accused the Kenyan nationals of working illegally on tourist visas. 2 US refugee officers were also briefly detained. The raid drew the Trump administration's fury. The US called it unacceptable and slammed South Africa for interference. Washington said that despite the raid, its refugee program remains unaffected. The US State Department has claimed an uptick in the number of Afrikaners arriving in the US. It said that more Afrikaner refugees arrived in the US in December than any previous month, and even higher numbers are expected in January. Around 1,000 Afrikaners have arrived in the US since May 2025. Since Donald Trump took office last year, ties between South Africa and the US have nosedived, and there have been no signs of improvements ever since. Last year in May, Trump hosted Ramaphosa at the White House. The meeting quickly turned into a showdown, with Trump accusing the Ramaphosa government of discriminating against white people and snatching the land of white farmers.
A lot of people are very concerned with regard to South Africa, and that's really the purpose of the meeting, and we'll see how that turns out. But we have many people that feel they're being persecuted, and they're coming to the United States. So we take from many locations if we feel there's persecution or genocide going on.
And what followed? Trump imposed a 30% tariff on South African goods, skipped the G20 meeting held in Johannesburg, banned South Africa from the upcoming G20 summit in Miami, and expulsion from a trade deal remains on the table. Pretoria is now making diplomatic manoeuvres to ease tensions. Now that South Africa has reportedly agreed not to interfere in US refugee operations, will it change the trajectory of ties between the two countries? And joining us to break this down is Lauren Landau, a senior researcher with the African Centre for Migration and Society at the University of Witwatersrand, live from Nairobi in Kenya. Welcome to Firstpost Africa.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Let's start with that question then. Is this a potential turning point in relations that we've said already have nosedived between South Africa and the United States?
I think South African politics is a mix of ideology and pragmatism. And in this case, what we're seeing is pragmatism winning out. The government saying, this is not the hill on which we want to die. The relationship with the United States is critical. Trade is critical. And this serves a dual purpose. It can help renew relationships with the United States, open up trading, maybe reduce some of the tariffs. But it's also a way of getting people who are against the regime, against the government in South Africa, to leave. And I think those people within the country are deeply unpopular. Opening a way for them to exit the country doesn't come with any costs politically for Ramaphosa.
Let's have a look at those who may have criticised Ramaphosa's stance on the US, specifically as relations have broken down. How do you think the response will be if these reported easing of pressure and condemnation of a program, a refugee program, that was previously there?
I think it depends on the broader suite of actions that the government takes over the next months. What we've seen is the South African government has overtly condemned for example, the invasion and the abduction of Maduro in Venezuela. So it suggests that the government remains principled, that it will remain as strong when it comes to international law and protecting its sovereignty and its position against the United States. But if it is able to open trade, create jobs, try to facilitate movement of people between the two countries, I think this is a win for South Africa.
Lauren, of course, Trump has made claims of a white genocide in South Africa. Does this in any way validate those claims?
I think that everybody knows that those claims are absurd. I think most Americans know that they're absurd, and every South African, apart from a very small minority, believes that they are a ridiculous claim. I think most South Africans will see this as acquiescence to the United States in a certain way, but that the pragmatic principles behind it, that the need to promote trade, the need to create jobs, the need to maintain a good position in international affairs far outweighs that. We all know what's going on here, and I think that will protect Ramaphosa from too many critics.
And Lauren, to finish, of course, if reports are correct and the Ramaphosa government does step back on the Afrikaner Refugee regime and programme, do you think that this potentially opens the door for Trump to push further in the future?
Well, I think that Trump will push as far as Trump wishes to push on any issue. What we've seen in his relationship with South Africa or his relationship with even NATO allies is that he would change day by day. This definitely legitimizes him on one level, but for Trump himself, I'm not sure he'll notice. I'm not sure that it will really change his behavior.
Lauren, thank you ever so much for joining us and providing insight on Firstpost Africa.
It's a pleasure.
The world doesn't fit in boxes, so why should your news? From battlefields to negotiation tables, from internet outrage to real-world injustice. The conversations everyone is having and the ones they're avoiding. It's the same show, but this new year, Firstpost America gets a new look. I'm Kerry Johnston, and this is Firstpost America.